Princess Zara stood in front of her giant mirror, looking at herself one more time. The sparkling crown on her head caught the light from 3 different suns that shone through her bedroom window. She lived in a palace made of crystal that reached up to the clouds. Far away on a planet called Andromeda Prime, everything around her was beautiful. But today she felt different. Today she felt excited. In her hands, she held something very special. It was a wedding invitation, but not like the fancy ones from her own world. This one was made of simple paper from Earth, with pretty gold letters that spelled out words in English. Her friend Elena was getting married, and she wanted Zara to be there for her big day. Zara smiled as she remembered how she first met Elena. It was 7 years ago during a big meeting between different planets. All the important people from across the galaxy came together to talk about peace. Zara had to go because she was a princess, but she was nervous. She had never met humans before, and she didn't know what to expect. Most people at the meeting treated her like she was very important. They bowed and used fancy words and tried to impress her. But Elena was different. She was a captain in the Earth military, and she treated Zara like a normal person. She asked about her favorite foods, her hobbies, and what she liked to do for fun. For the first time in her life, Zara felt like someone saw her as just Zara, not Princess Zara. They became good friends during that week. Every night after the boring meetings, they would sit together and talk about their different worlds. Elena told her about Earth's oceans and how they change colors during sunset. She talked about ice cream and movies and how humans celebrated birthdays. Zara shared stories about her planet's floating cities and the purple flowers that sang. In the morning, they laughed together when Zara tried to eat pizza for the first time and accidentally ate the box, too. But the best part was how Elena never made her feel strange or different. When Zara's skin glowed blue when she was happy, Elena just smiled and said it was beautiful. When Zara could hear thoughts from far away, Elena didn't get scared. Instead, she asked if Zara could teach her how to do it, too. When the peace meeting ended, they both knew they would miss each other. Zara went back to her crystal palace, and Elena returned to her military base on Earth. They tried to stay in touch, but it was hard. Messages between planets took a long time to travel, and both of them had busy lives. Now, holding this wedding invitation, Zara felt her heart beating faster. She was so happy that Elena had found someone to love and wanted to share this special day with her. But she was also nervous. It had been 7 years since she visited Earth. Would Elena still remember her? Would she still want to be friends? Zara walked to her window and looked out at the 3 suns setting behind the crystal mountains. Her planet was beautiful, but sometimes she felt lonely. Being a princess meant she had many responsibilities. She had to attend meetings about laws and trade between planets. She had to make speeches and wear fancy clothes and always say the right thing. Sometimes she wished she could just be normal, like when she was with Elena. She picked up the invitation again and read it carefully. The wedding would be in a small town by the ocean on Earth. Elena had written a personal note at the bottom. Dear Zara, I hope you can come. I have so many stories to tell you, and I want you to meet the love of my life. Please say yes, your friend always, Elena. Zara's skin started glowing a soft blue color. She was definitely going to this wedding. She called her assistant and asked him to prepare her spaceship for the journey to Earth. Then she went to her closet to pick out clothes that would help her blend in with humans. The hardest part would be disguising herself. On her planet, everyone had slightly blue skin and could glow different colors depending on their mood. Their eyes were bigger than human eyes, and they were taller and thinner. Zara would need to use special technology to make herself look completely human. She also had to learn about human wedding customs. She spent hours reading about what people wore, what gifts they brought, and how they celebrated. She wanted to do everything right for Elena's special day. As she prepared for the trip, Zara felt a mix of excitement and worry. She wondered if Elena's other friends would like her. She wondered if she would understand all the human traditions. Most of all, she wondered if she and Elena would still have the same easy friendship they had 7 years ago. But deep down, she knew this trip was important. Elena had been one of the first humans to show her that friendship could exist between different worlds. Now Elena was starting a new chapter of her life, and Zara wanted to be there to celebrate with her. The next morning, Zara boarded her spaceship and began the long journey to Earth. As her planet became smaller and smaller behind her, she felt ready for whatever adventures waited for her at Elena's wedding. After 3 days of traveling through space, Zara finally saw Earth getting bigger and bigger through her spaceship window. The blue and green planet looked so beautiful, with its white clouds swirling around like cotton candy. She had seen pictures before, but seeing it in real life made her heart skip a beat. This was Elena's homeworld, and soon she would be walking on it, landing her ship in a quiet forest outside the small coastal town. Zara took a deep breath. She pressed a small device on her wrist, and slowly her appearance began to change. Her blue skin became the warm brown color that humans had. Her glowing eyes became dark brown and smaller. Her tall, thin body became shorter and more like a human woman. The transformation always felt strange, like putting on clothes that didn't quite fit right. Looking at herself in the ship's mirror, she smiled. She looked completely human now. No one would guess she was from another planet. She had practiced walking like humans do, without the graceful floating steps her people used. She had learned to blink more often because humans did that, and she had studied how to move her hands when she talked. The town was exactly like Elena had described in her old letters. Small houses with colorful roofs lined the streets. Flowers grew in every garden, and the smell of the ocean was everywhere. Zara walked slowly, taking in all the new sights and sounds. Children played in the parks, their laughter filling the air. Old couples sat on benches, watching the world go by. Everything felt so peaceful and happy. She found the little church where the wedding would happen tomorrow. It sat on a hill overlooking the ocean, with white walls and a tall bell tower. The building was nothing like the grand crystal temples on her planet, but it had something special about it. Maybe it was the way the afternoon sun made the windows glow, or how the ocean waves crashed gently on the rocks below. It felt like a perfect place for Elena to start her new life. As she stood there admiring the church, Zara saw people carrying flowers and decorations inside. They must be getting ready for tomorrow's wedding. Her heart started beating faster. Elena was somewhere in this little town, probably getting excited and nervous about her big day. Zara walked down to the main street and found a small hotel where she could stay the night. The owner, an elderly woman with kind eyes, welcomed her warmly. When Zara signed the guest book, she used the human name she had chosen for this trip, Luna. It seemed like a good name for someone from the stars. That evening, Zara sat by her hotel window, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold on her planet. They had 3 suns, so sunsets were always bright and colorful. But Earth's single sun created something different, a gentle, soft beauty that made her feel calm and peaceful. She thought about tomorrow and felt butterflies in her stomach. Would Eleanor recognize her even in her human disguise? Would they still be able to talk and laugh together like they did 7 years ago? What if Eleanor had changed? What if she had forgotten about their friendship? Zara pulled out her small communication device and almost sent a message to Eleanor, but then stopped. She wanted to surprise her friend. She wanted to see Eleanor's face when she realized that her alien friend had traveled across the galaxy to be at her wedding. To calm her nerves, Zara decided to take a walk through the town. The streets were quiet now, with warm light glowing from house windows. She could hear families having dinner, children being tucked into bed, and couples talking quietly on their porches. The sounds of normal, everyday life made her feel both happy and a little sad. On her planet, everyone was always so formal and proper. Here, people seemed to live with their hearts open. She walked past a small restaurant where a few people were having dinner outside. They were talking and laughing, and one couple was holding hands across the table. Zara had never seen such open displays of love on her planet. Royal families like hers were expected to be more controlled with their emotions. But watching these humans made her realize How beautiful it was to show love so freely. As she continued walking, Zara noticed how different everything smelled and sounded compared to her home. Earth had the smell of flowers and ocean salt, while her planet smelled like crystal and stardust. Here, she could hear birds singing and dogs barking, sounds that didn't exist on Andromeda Prime. By the time she returned to her hotel, Zara felt more confident about tomorrow. This little town felt welcoming and warm. Elena had chosen a beautiful place to get married, and Zara was honored to be part of it. Before going to sleep, she practiced some human expressions in the mirror. She wanted to make sure she could hug Eleanor properly and show all the joy she felt without accidentally glowing blue or floating off the ground. Tomorrow would be a day she would remember forever, and she wanted everything to be perfect for her dear friend's special celebration. The next morning, Zara woke up to the sound of seagulls crying outside her window. She had never heard such sounds before, and they made her smile. Today was the day she would finally see Elena again after 7 long years. She put on a simple blue dress that she had bought specially for this occasion, and made sure her human disguise was perfect. The pre-wedding party was being held in the church garden, and when Zara arrived, she saw dozens of people already there. Everyone was laughing and talking, holding glasses of something bubbly that sparkled in the sunlight. She recognized this from her research. It was called champagne, and humans drank it during celebrations. Zara stood near the garden entrance, feeling nervous. All these people knew each other, but she was a stranger. She watched families hugging and friends taking pictures together. Children ran around in their fancy clothes, trying not to spill food on themselves. The whole scene was so warm and joyful that it made her heart feel light. She was looking at the beautiful flower arrangements when she heard it, a laugh that she recognized immediately. Not Elena's laugh, but someone else's. A laugh that took her back to her teenage years at the Space Academy. Her heart stopped for a moment. It couldn't be. There was no way. Slowly, she turned around and looked across the crowded garden. There, standing by the fountain, was someone she never expected to see on Earth. He was tall with dark hair and kind eyes, wearing a simple black suit like all the other human men. But Zara knew better. She could see past his human disguise just like he could probably see past hers. It was Kai, her best friend from the academy. The boy who used to help her with her flight lessons and share his lunch with her when she forgot to bring her own. The friend who had stood by her during the hardest times of her training, when other students made fun of her for being a princess who didn't know how to fix a broken spaceship. Their eyes met across the garden, and time seemed to stop. Zara felt her breath catch in her throat. Kai's face showed the same surprise she felt. For a moment, they just stared at each other, both too shocked to move. Then, slowly, Kai smiled. That same gentle smile she remembered from their academy days. Zara's mind was racing. What was Kai doing here? How did he know Elena? She had so many questions, but she couldn't ask them here, surrounded by humans who had no idea they were both aliens in disguise. Kai started walking toward her, and Zara felt her heart beating, so fast she was worried it might show through her human costume. As he got closer, she could see that he had changed since their academy days. He looked older, more serious, but his eyes still held the same kindness she remembered. "Hello," he said softly when he reached her. His voice was exactly the same, even though he was speaking English instead of their native language. "I wasn't expecting to see you here." "I could say the same thing," Zara replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "What are you doing on Earth?" Before Kai could answer, a group of people came over to them. They were Elena's relatives, and they started talking to Zara about how they had never seen her before and asking where she was from. Zara had to focus on giving them answers that sounded normal and human, but all she could think about was Kai standing right next to her. Throughout the afternoon, they found themselves near each other, but they couldn't talk privately. Every time one of them tried to start a real conversation, another guest would join them or someone would call them over for pictures. It was frustrating, but also exciting. Zara kept stealing glances at Kai, still not believing he was really there. She noticed that he seemed to know many of the wedding guests. People came up to him and patted his shoulder, calling him by his human name, David. They talked about how glad they were to see him again and asked about his travels. Zara realized that Kai must have been visiting Earth for longer than she thought. During a quiet moment, when most people were focused on the bride and groom greeting their guests, Kai managed to whisper to her in their native language, "We need to talk. Meet me by the beach after the party." Zara nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had so many questions for him, and she could tell he had questions for her too. As the afternoon went on, Zara found herself watching Kai more than she probably should have. He moved through the crowd with ease, making jokes with the other guests and helping serve food to the elderly relatives. He seemed so comfortable here, like he belonged. It made her wonder what his life had been like since they last saw each other. When Elena finally arrived at the party, Zara's attention turned to her friend. Elena looked beautiful in her white dress, glowing with happiness. But even as Zara hugged her friend and listened to her excited chatter about the wedding plans, part of her mind was still thinking about Kai and the impossible coincidence that had brought them both to this small Earth town on the same day. As the sun began to set, the wedding party started to wind down. Zara's heart was beating fast as she walked toward the beach where Kai was waiting for her. The sound of waves crashing against the rocks was peaceful, but inside she felt anything but calm. She had so many questions racing through her mind. She found Kai standing on the sandy shore, looking out at the ocean. The moonlight made the water sparkle like diamonds, and for a moment, it reminded her of the crystal lakes back home when he heard her footsteps. He turned around and smiled. In the soft light, she could see glimpses of his real appearance flickering through his human disguise. "I can't believe you're really here," Kai said, switching back to their native language. It felt so good to hear those familiar sounds again after speaking English all day. "When I saw you at the party, I thought I was dreaming." "I felt the same way," Zara replied, sitting down on a large rock nearby. "I kept thinking my eyes were playing tricks on me. What are you doing on Earth? How do you know Elena?" Kai sat down beside her, and she noticed he was careful to keep some distance between them. "It's a long story," he said. "Do you remember? When we graduated from the academy, I was assigned to the Centauri Defense Force, like my father wanted." Zara nodded. She remembered how sad Kai had been about that assignment. He had always wanted to be an explorer, not a soldier. "Well, 2 years ago, I was part of a rescue mission," Kai continued. "A group of human space explorers had gotten lost in our sector. Their ship was damaged, and they were running out of air. Elena was the captain of that mission." Zara's eyes widened. She had no idea that Elena had been in danger. "We saved them just in time," Kai said. "But Elena was badly hurt. She had to stay in our medical bay for weeks while she recovered. During that time, we became friends. She told me about her life on Earth, about her family and friends." "And she told me about you?" "About me?" Zara asked, surprised. "She talked about you all the time." Kai smiled. "She said you were the kindest person she had ever met, and that she missed you terribly. She showed me pictures from when you visited Earth before. That's when I realized you were the same Zara I had known at the academy." Zara felt her heart skip a beat. "You recognized me from Elena's pictures." "Of course I did. You might have been in your human form, but I could still see you in your eyes. The way you smiled, the way you stood. I've known you since we were kids. Zara, I could recognize you anywhere." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the waves. Then Kai continued his story. "After Elena recovered, I helped her and her crew get back to Earth safely. But something had changed in me, seeing how brave and kind humans could be. Seeing how much Elena cared about her people and her friends, it made me question everything. I thought I knew about other species." "What do you mean?" Zara asked. "I started thinking about all the conflicts between our worlds, all the fighting and fear. But here was this human woman who risked her life to explore space, who treated me like a friend even though I was from a different planet. It made me realize that maybe we're not so different after all." Kai picked up a small shell from the sand and turned it over in his hands. I've been visiting Earth regularly since then. Elena invited me to come whenever I wanted. I've been learning about human culture, trying to understand how they live and what they value. And the more I learn, the more I believe that peace between our worlds is possible. That's beautiful, Zara said softly. I've been thinking the same thing. Elena showed me that friendship doesn't care about which planet you're from. Exactly, Kai said, looking at her with excitement in his eyes. And that's why I've been thinking about leaving the Defense Force. I want to work for peace instead of preparing for war. I want to help build bridges between our worlds instead of walls. Zara felt a warmth spreading through her chest. This was the Kai she remembered from their academy days, the one who always believed in doing what was right, even when it was difficult. I've been having similar thoughts, she admitted. Being a princess means I have to think about politics and trade agreements all the time. But what I really want is to help our people understand each other better, to show them that we can be friends, not enemies. They talk for hours under the starlight, sharing stories about their lives since the academy. Kai told her about his missions to different planets and the things he had learned. Zara told him about her royal duties and how lonely she sometimes felt in her crystal palace. I've missed this, Kai said eventually. I've missed having someone who understands me. I've missed it too, Zara replied. I've missed having a friend who sees me as just me, not as a princess or a diplomat. As they prepared to walk back to town, Zara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not just hope for tomorrow's wedding, but hope for the future. Hope that maybe, with friends like Elena and Kai, peace between their worlds was really possible. The morning of Elena's wedding arrived with golden sunshine and a gentle ocean breeze. Zara woke up feeling more excited than she had in years. Today wasn't just about celebrating her friend's happiness. It was also about the wonderful surprise of finding Kai again and the new hope growing in her heart. She put on her best dress, a soft lavender color that reminded her of the flowers back home. As she walked to the church, she saw other wedding guests making their way up the hill, all dressed in their finest clothes. Everyone looked happy and ready to celebrate. The little church was decorated with white roses and baby's breath ribbons fluttered in the breeze, and the smell of flowers filled the air. Zara found a seat near the middle of the church, and a few minutes later, Kai sat down beside her. They exchanged a quick smile, both remembering their long conversation by the beach the night before. When the music started, everyone stood up. Elena appeared at the back of the church, looking absolutely beautiful in her flowing white dress. Her face was glowing with joy, and she walked slowly down the aisle toward her future husband, a kind-looking man named Robert who couldn't stop smiling. As Zara watched Elena walk toward her new life, she felt tears starting to form in her eyes. This was something humans did that her people rarely showed, crying when they were happy. She had learned to embrace these human emotions during her time on Earth, and right now, she felt overwhelmed with joy for her friend. The wedding ceremony was simple but beautiful. Elena and Robert spoke words of love and promise to each other. They exchanged rings and kissed while everyone clapped and cheered. When the priest announced that they were now husband and wife, the whole church erupted in celebration. But what made Zara's heart soar was when she felt Kai's hand gently take hers during the most touching part of the ceremony. His fingers were warm and familiar, and for a moment, she felt like she was 18 again, sitting next to her best friend at the academy. After the ceremony, everyone moved to the garden for the reception. Tables were set up under string lights, and there was music and dancing. Zara had never seen humans dance before, and she watched in wonder as couples moved together to the rhythm of the music. "Would you like to dance?" Kai asked, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of champagne. "I don't know how," Zara admitted, feeling shy. "My people don't dance like this. I'll teach you," Kai said with a gentle smile. "I've been learning human customs, remember?" They found a quiet corner of the dance floor, and Kai showed her how to move to the music. At first, Zara felt clumsy and worried she might accidentally float off the ground or let her skin glow. But Kai was patient and encouraging, and soon, She was laughing and moving to the rhythm. "You're a natural," Kai said as they swayed together under the twinkling lights. "I have a good teacher," Zara replied, feeling happier than she had in years. As the evening went on, Elena found her way over to them. She looked radiant in her wedding dress, but there was something knowing in her eyes that made Zara curious. "I'm so happy you both could be here," Elena said, looking back and forth between them with a mysterious smile. "Both?" Zara asked, confused. Elena laughed. "Did you really think I didn't know who you were?" "Zara, your eyes are the same whether you're blue or human. And Kai, you still have that same gentle way of speaking that you had when you saved my life in space." Zara and Kai looked at each other in surprise. They had thought their disguises were perfect. "I've been hoping for months that you two would meet," Elena continued. "When I was recovering in Kai's medical bay, he told me about a princess friend he had lost touch with. When he described you, I knew it was my Zara, so I made sure to invite you both to the wedding." "You planned this?" Zara asked, amazed. Of course I did," Elena beamed. "I could see how much you both meant to each other, even in the stories you told. I thought maybe bringing you together again might help both of you find what you were looking for." Zara felt her heart fill with gratitude for her thoughtful friend. Elena had given her more than just a wedding invitation. She had given her back a piece of herself that she had thought was lost forever. As the party continued into the night, Zara and Kai made plans to meet again soon, not as representatives of their planets, but as the friends they had always been. They talked about working together to build peace between their worlds, using their friendship as proof that understanding was possible. When it was time for Elena and Robert to leave for their honeymoon, Elena hugged Zara tightly. "Thank you for coming all this way," she whispered. "And thank you for showing me that friendship really can cross any distance." "Thank you for bringing us together," Zara replied, tears of joy streaming down her face. As Zara and Kai stood together under the star-filled sky, watching Elena's car disappear into the night, they both knew this was just the beginning. They had found each other again, and together they would work to build a future where all worlds could live in peace and friendship. The wedding had been perfect, but the real celebration was just beginning.